Hello. Well, I will be standing in for Tululokpa Deleru Balogun for the rest of this week while she handles some developments outside the office. But then you might want to agree with me that expansion is a normal trend in all industries, but the financial sector seems to be the postal child of growth, particularly when it is hinged on profits and good performance. Now, when this growth is happening, these firms seek flourishing environments where they can further expand and continue to earn more profits from the services being provided. The various regulators in those locations also play a large role since they provide the framework and enabling environment that could either kill growth or encourage and support it to mature and true independence from its parent company. Kenya is becoming more attractive to several banks across the continent, from the north to the south and even the western part of Africa. Why are banks from across our continent seeking a foothold in Kenya? Is the environment that fruitful that many can flourish? We are looking at this as our focus is on Africa's next financial hub, being Nairobi, Kenya. Well, Nigerian banks seeking to escape the malaise gripping Africa's biggest economy could find refuge by expanding in Kenya, where the industry is ripe for deals and the construction might still be avoided. It will also offer lenders from Lagos a reprieve from rules that are far more onerous than what their counterparts in Nairobi have to contend with, said Adesoji Asholanke, Director for Frontier and Sub-Saharan African Banks Equity Research at Renaissance Capital. Well, let me let you know that I am Liko Onobanjo. You're welcome. This is Business Edge. And joining me is an Africa Geoeconomic and Macro Analyst, CEO, Reach Management, Ali Khan Sachu. Thank you so much, Ali Khan, for joining the conversation this morning. Even as we take a look at Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, becoming a financial hub in Africa. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right, so let's start this way. Nairobi, Kenya is becoming a financial port in Africa. Well, the Kenyan government is hoping to have Nairobi become a financial port, which means it is like a presidential hub, so to speak, for finances and businesses, most especially finance and business capitals coming into Africa. But then, what is your take? Do you think Kenya has the capacity? Do you think it is ripe? Do you think it has all what it takes for it to establish itself as a financial hub in Africa? Or what sort of foundation do you also think the Kenyan government has laid to make this dream a possibility?
So that's a multi-sided question. I think Kenya has always had a sophisticated banking sector. You can see that in the banks, the likes of Standard Chartered, Barclays have been here for about a decade, for about a century. And Kenya has developed a very sophisticated banking sector, which has also seen plenty of expansion in the region. I think we would have to admit that in the last 5 to 10 years, we haven't seen the liquidity flows that we would like to see in Nairobi. The stock market volumes have tailed off dramatically, and we have not necessarily seen capital markets activity that would be commensurate with our ambitions. So I think, this idea of the Nairobi Financial Center is really to become a financial hub, something like Mauritius or Casablanca in terms of the region. And I think the ambition that's been laid out is very positive and far-reaching. The challenge is in the detail, and one needs policy-making consistency for this to happen. One needs a sophisticated understanding in the regulatory area, and one needs a very conducive environment in terms of the entire business environment. I think Kenya has to deliver on the policy making side. We've had far too much policy flip-flopping and inconsistency, which has not been helpful. I think what's been helpful in giving this hub a push has been the desire and the support from the United Kingdom, particularly post-Brexit. Kenya has been seen as a very strong and important partner in Africa for Boris Johnson's government. And I think this latest push, which has happened in the last week or two, was part of this collaboration that I'm describing.
All right, well, before we begin to go into the kind of policies that are needed to drive this initiative, well, other established African financial hubs have been Johannesburg in South Africa. You talked about Casablanca, Morocco. Mauritius is also joined in. But then in joining this league, what are the benefits, as it were, that it's in for Kenya if they're able to bring this to birth?
So you're quite correct. I think, one has to admit that the most sophisticated financial center is obviously Johannesburg. You've got a depth of talent, you've got a depth of openness within global markets. The Rand, for example, is the 9th most traded currency in the world. So, these facts are very pertinent. The spillover effects of having a successful financial hub and financial center are enormous. Job creation, capital market sophistication. The perennial problem in Africa has been that we are sellers of primary commodities. For example, there's more coffee traded in Germany than there is in the entire continent of Africa. And they don't produce a single coffee bean. You can look at cocoa markets, you can look at oil derivatives markets. So really the value that you can capture is a multiple of the primary value capture as a farmer or as a producer of oil and gas. So creating a financial center creates enormous value for that country. But you've got to appreciate what are the key buttons you need to be pressing. You need an open economy. You need to allow talent from anywhere in the world. You can't have restrictions around human capital. You've got to have a certain degree of openness and understanding of the global markets. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed in this venture. Interestingly, I would say if I looked at a country in the region that understood what is required but doesn't have the scale, I would say it's Kigali and the folks in the government of President Kagame. They've already introduced a rule where any African can come and work in Rwanda without requiring a work permit or automatically getting one. These are the sort of things that you've got to be doing. But make no mistake, if you get it right, it's a home run and it's going to create enormous value all across the value chain.
All right. I'm glad that you are bringing out a whole lot of positivity as regards what this initiative will mean for Africa. But then let's take it on a continental scale now. Looking at Africa, we understand that Nairobi is trying to seek to attract global firms to set up their headquarters in Nairobi, and definitely you said it will spiral into so many opportunities. Then if this is bringing about a whole lot of positivity and transformational change for Kenya, what about Africa? Where does it position Africa in terms of becoming a hub where businesses, foreign direct investment flows comes into play?
So, just to backtrack a little bit, what you do need, of course, is connectivity. You need human capital. You need internet connectivity, not just, connectivity in the airline business. These are sine qua non. If you don't have this, you might as well forget about it. These are very, very key points without which you cannot deliver. In terms of the African continent, I've got to say, with few exceptions, Our policymakers are stuck 2, 3, 4 decades ago. In many cases, you can see policymakers are ahead of the curve. For example, in Egypt, which is able to attract enormous amounts of FDI, which has a very sophisticated policy-making cadre of civil servants. But otherwise you end up in, I mean, no offense to some of your viewers, you end up in a Nigerian situation where your policy making is not joined up, and situations develop which cause pressure on the currency and all kinds of other things. So I think also the advantage, hopefully, for the continent is once you have more of these financial centers who understand what global markets require better, and understand that there is an international dimension to what they're doing, then you get better policy-making outcomes and you create more jobs for our people and create more opportunities for them. We are a very big continent, enormous amounts of potential. People talk about Africa rising, but we're not going to rise till we have sophisticated capital markets and we have the ability to transact all across the capital markets value chain without policy-making interference for whatever reason.
All right, thank you so much, Ali Khan. We'll pause for a while and rejoin you in a bit, but then you have heard it. It's all about having policies, life-changing policies, positive policies, and not only having those kind of policies, but when it comes to implementation, is being altruistic about it so that the benefits can be 100%, not only for Kenya as it is now, but also for Africa. Well, other areas we get to touch down on is the issue of COVID-19 and waning investors' confidence. Now, what do you think the Kenyan government can do to rise above this so that this laudable initiative, which is making Nairobi Africa's next financial hub, becomes a global celebration, as it were? We get to find out at the other side of this break. To stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. It's still Business Edge, and we have been speaking with Africa's geoeconomic and macro analyst, CEO Rich Management, Ali Khan Sachu, and we have been taking a look at Nairobi, Kenya becoming Africa's next financial hub. Now, let's go back to you, Ali Khan. Now, Kenya has been working since 2014 to establish the Nairobi International Financial Center, aiming to becoming a gateway for capital flowing in and out of Africa to compete with Mauritius, Morocco, South Africa, and the likes. And you also know that this would be a vista for foreign companies, foreign investors to come into that part of the country to invest. And definitely there will be contractual agreements, contractual signings, and definitely contractual disputes. Now, do you think that the courts are independent enough to handle such court matters, as it were? And what other institutions would Kenya need in order to attract more funds? Let's look at it from those two angles.
Well, that's a great question and a very, very pertinent one. You're not going to have a financial center at this moment in time if you're going to try and run these disputes or contractual arrangements through the existing judiciary. It's just not going to happen. So what you've essentially got to do is either you've got to apply some kind of international law in this scenario, and you've also got to create an environment for speedy dispute resolution. And therefore, you're going to have to do all of this outside the existing channel and create a new channel, because this could be a deal breaker from the get-go. So you're absolutely correct to raise this. A lot of people, friends of mine, have been raising this as an issue. And for Kenya really to aspire to being an African financial hub, it's going to have to apply international laws, regulations, and possibly a standalone or international-based dispute and legal resolution mechanism. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. You know, the financial markets work on the basis of split-second timing. If you get stuck in our courts for 9, 12, 2 years, it's just not going to happen. So your point is well made, and so far, I haven't seen how the authorities are seeking to resolve this matter.
All right, let's touch down on this now. The Capital Markets Authority is said to have failed to achieve key performance indicators. Well, this is no cost to them. They cited issues of COVID-19 pandemic, waning investors' confidence in the capital markets, low uptake of investment products, and poor listing on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, could this affect the new policy thrust to becoming a financial hub? These are challenges that are there, they are existing, but do you think they might be a clog in the wheel of progress in terms of Nairobi becoming the next financial hub?
Another good question. So what you're referencing is a very poor performance in the stock market. The NSE 20 is back to levels, I think, of 2005 and 2006. If you stripped out Safaricom and a couple of the big banks, it's basically been an equity market which has been nosediving, frankly. And also, quite legitimate criticism has been laid out that the government has not understood instinctively or intuitively the requirements for a successful capital markets. Having said that, we have, I think, a reasonably sophisticated Nairobi Securities Exchange who have developed a lot of products. But the issue is you can build a house, but then you've got to have people come and live in it. Otherwise, you're just going to get no flow that's going through. So, I've got to give high marks to the NSE, to the Capital Markets Authority, to the central bank. That's the governor you're showing. But at the end of the day, you need throughput, you need volume, you need confirmation, you need new listings, you need companies who are going to come and say, yes, we want to set up in Nairobi. So far, we've had one very important company, which is the Prudential Global Insurance Company, who've committed to coming to Nairobi. But you want the dam to burst. You want a large number of companies to come. So absolutely, your point is well made. I think we're not coming from a position of strength because of the performance of our markets, but definitely, we've got the roadmap. The question is the execution, and as you well know, the devil is always in the detail of the execution.
All right, now talking about a roadmap, we understand that the CMA is hoping, based on what is contained in the roadmap, to achieve an MSCI emerging market status for Kenya. That was in 2020 anyway, and by 2023, it is hoping to transform the country into the choice market for domestic, regional, and international issuers and investors looking to invest and realize investments in East and Central Africa. So you showed a whole lot of optimism about it, but let's be very candid. Do you think, or can we safely say that the ease of doing business status in Kenya has improved or will improve if you stick to your guns?
You're asking lots of difficult questions. First, I've got issues with that ease of doing business index. We've seen movements on that which don't chime with people who are sitting here on the ground. I think in terms of the ease of doing business, we have been in reverse gear here in Kenya, which is a big challenge. And I think there's got to be an absolute gear change in the way we make it easier for companies to set up, and we make it easier for the ease of doing business. We've had far too many arbitrary changes in the tax regime, arbitrary changes in too many areas, which signal to me, which was why I was saying, we're talking a good book, but we got to walk the talk. And so far, if you look, you can listen to the talk and give it an A+, or you can look at the walk and you'd probably give it a C-. And therefore, there is this big chasm into which Kenya has got to move in order to achieve its ambitions.
All right, let me have your reaction as regards what President Uhuru Kenyatta said after the deal in the city of London. He said that they are upbeat, his government is upbeat, that the center will be up and running soon. And based on projections, it is expected to offer unspecified tax incentives and autonomy to firms that are willing to set up in Nairobi. But then some financial experts are saying that these tax incentives and waivers is a sort of magnanimity towards these would-be foreign investors coming in. They are saying that it will hurt the Kenyan government and serve as an avenue for exploitation for the investors. Do you agree? Is that something Kenyans should be worried about?
I think we often, and it's not just Kenyans, but as Africans, somehow think that these evil multinational companies are going to come and exploit us. But, we have agency. We can create environments where we are not exploited. If we have intelligent policymakers, they can create an enabling environment where the country is not exploited and where the company gains. And it's a win-win, that terrible phrase, I don't like it, but in this case, you can create an environment of a win-win. We should not be afraid of making ourselves attractive to international companies to come and set up, because they come and set up, they create jobs, they create opportunities, and you get a positive spillover effect in terms of human capital being upgraded. So I'm not concerned that a whole bunch of tax evading evil multinationals are about to land on our doorstep and basically like a bunch of locusts finish off the country. I think we got to give up that way of thinking. We've got to think more positively. This is an opportunity for us to leapfrog from a reasonably advantageous existing position into the future. And I think that's the way we need to look at it. And we need to have policymakers and regulators who are confident and intelligent enough to know that they can create a level playing field which is not disadvantageous to the sovereign, but is advantageous in the long run.
Okay, so finally, your swift response to this. Some people are also skeptical about banking secrecy in Kenya. They've talked about the impossibility of tracking money laundering activities. And so the Kenyan government has been advised to leverage its competitive edge to differentiate its financial hub from existing ones. Now, do you also think that is another challenge? Do you think having these sort of people coming into the country to invest would promote money laundering, banking secrecy, as it were, by banks in the country? Finally now.
So just to answer that question, I think, it's a fair question to ask, because there have been clearly issues around money laundering. Kenya's tried all kinds of things. Today, you can't withdraw $10,000 in cash without having to file a form. But at the end of the day, the big multinational companies like Prudential who are coming in have no interest in money laundering. I mean, the cost to a business like that, being accused of money laundering, even in the furthest flung part of the world, is too high. So if you attract the right type of companies who are playing at a global level, they are not going to run the risks of this type of behavior. The issue with this type of behavior does not really emanate from that corner. It emanates from fly-by-night companies who take advantage of scenarios where you don't have very good regulation. And against those folks, we've got to be very, very vigilant. I think we have the capacity to deal with this problem, but obviously we would need the support of our major partners, the US, the Europeans, and others.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much, Ali Kasachu, for joining us on the program. We appreciate the clarifications you've given. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so you've heard it. Halikan is saying that it is time for Kenya to step out from their comfort zone and not to be afraid to project themselves or to project herself to the world, so that they can reap the benefits of what is happening all over Africa when it comes to positive transformation. All right, so we'll go for this break, and when we return, it will be time for NC4 to watch. Stay with us. And on NC4 to watch, the Companies and Intellectual Commission in South Africa has agreed to grant low-cost airline Mango an extension to appoint a business rescue practitioner. The proceedings were held virtually in the High Court in Johannesburg. Representative Lucinda Steenkamp told the court that the commission would grant the extension pending the outcome of a court application by unions to place the embattled budget airline in business rescue. Now, the United Arab Emirates will on Thursday lift a ban on transit flights from India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Nigeria, and Uganda. This is according to a statement by the National Emergency and Crisis Management Authority made available online. NCMA said passengers will be able to transit through its airports from Thursday as long as they present negative PCR tests taken 72 hours before departure. And away from that, Egypt is exposed to potential liquidity and external financing shocks, according to global ratings agency. Moody's adds in its latest report on the second largest African country by gross domestic product size. Recall that Egypt displaced South Africa to become second largest, now placed behind Nigeria. And finally, Shelter Afrique has received an additional capital contribution amounting to $3.5 million from the government of Cameroon, raising the country's shareholding from 3.61% to 5.24%. Last month, Kenya had the majority shareholdings with additional capital amounting to $9,276,437, raising its stake by 18.72%. This new investment makes Cameroon the 8th country to inject fresh capital into the Pan-African housing financier this year. And that's the size of our package on Business Edge today. Thank you so much for being part of it. You can visit every of our social media platforms and download our app on App Store and Play Store to be part of the conversation. Many thanks for watching. I am Liko Onobanjo. Do enjoy the rest of your day.